Accurascale, kudos, absolutely perfect. This is another well-researched, well-executed model. A big hello to you. I hope I find you well. It's so great to see you. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Jennifer Kirk up here on Weir Yard. Now today we've got an interesting follow-up to the Class 55 Deltic from Accurascale that we reviewed a few months ago back on the channel, and it reviewed really well, and in fact that model really did do well out there in the community, went on to win several awards, and certainly it is an absolutely amazing model. Now Accurascale have now brought out their follow-up model, which is the Class 92 Electric, and they've very kindly sent one over to the channel for us to take a good close look at. So does it live up to the expectations set by the Class 55? Well, come with me in association with Trainomatic, makers of DCT decoders and accessories that are designed by enthusiasts for enthusiasts. Find the full range available to order now at tramfabrique.co.uk. Additional support comes from Rails of Sheffield. Sell to the name you know and trust. Buy, sell or exchange any age or any gauge. Call them now for the very best price. Check them out today at the link below. Does it live up to expectations? Let's take a closer look. When the Class 55 Deltic from Accurascale hit the shops, it really did wow modelers and the trade press alike, and indeed went on to scoop some awards. And pretty much everybody who saw it and used it said it was a quantum leap in what was available to UK modelers. And when I was speaking to Accurascale at Worley earlier this year, they said, oh, actually, well, you ain't seen nothing yet, because the forthcoming Class 92 will eclipse the Class 55 in terms of what it can do. And I thought this was quite big words, actually. And we've now had arrived the Class 92s, the second UK outline model from Accurascale, although I believe it is their third model overall if you include the Irish Railway Models A-Class, which we also reviewed on this channel. And Accurascale have very kindly sent over an example for us to take a look at and see whether those boasts at Worley are actually borne out by the model. And first up, it's actually quite a big model. I've had to wind my rostrum camera all the way up to be able to try and fit it all in, and it does mean that the model is very well packaged in here. So we've got Class 92 locomotive 92003, and this is Beethoven in Railfreight grey, suitable for Era 9 DCC sound fitted. And I'm really quite keen to see the full sound suite that's available on these, certainly because the sounds, the bells and the whistles on the Class 55 really were quite impressive. And it'd be nice to see just what has been carried over into the Class 92 model. Now I know that as promised there will be servo operated pantographs on this, and I'm really excited to take a close look at those. And we've also got the Stay Alive that's built in, so if you go for the sound fitted all singing all dancing bells and whistles model, really there's just nothing left to do. You've got everything in and set up, and it's just all that you need. And just taking some stuff out of the box here, first up we've got a very extensive, actually quite a nice laminated card, and it is going to be referred to a lot, so it's nice that they've used some high quality durable card stock for that, because this is going to be something handy to have to hand, just to remember what the different sounds are and also the different lighting functions. Now the lighting functions haven't been neglected with this, so we've got directionable auto extinguishing cab lights, We've got tail lights, which we can control on and off. Yard mode, which changes the setup of the lights on the front. Night running mode. A top headlight. So there's a lot of different sound options, and you can see here F26 and F27. We'll be exploring that later on to see what the pantograph operation is like. Now we've also got, I always love looking at these, the exploded diagram. This is not a toy. This is a precision model, and you can see just what goes into one of these models. And of course, should you ever need some spare parts, this is the handy diagram to refer to for what you need. And also we've got a quick guide there of how you'd get into the body too, which if you want to fit things like cab, driver and second man, you'll need to go into there. We've also got this nice stylized, almost like 1990s style, Class 92 booklet in French and English. Quite fitting, given that a number of these were built for operation by SNCF, Société Nationale Chemin de Fer, which is the French state operator at the time. And we've got a very in-depth history of the real locomotives from their inception through their use, working abroad in Europe, and the changes of ownership. And it's well worth a read, actually. I had a good leaf through. We've also got these window blinds. It's something that you do quite often see, especially low winter sun, the blinds in the down position, and they've got this very characteristic scissor type arrangement. You've got them in the slightly further up and all the way up positions, and there's enough there for both ends should you wish to add these. I'm not going to mess about, but certainly they are there for the end user should they wish it. And I like this. This just really shows the thought that's gone into the packaging. We've got some information here about freeing up from the clips. They've got like these retaining clips for in travel, just to stop the pantographs getting damaged. So it's kind of like, read this first and I will show you what to do with those. And you can see that the foam in there, I'm not going to do the throw it down my stairs test, as much as people go, oh, go on, go on. No, I'm not going to do that, because I do actually quite like having a nice box. Don't like them with wrinkled corners. But should this get kicked about, should your friendly local courier driver decide that they will drop kick it over your fence and into your pond, then your model should come out pretty much unscathed. And inside here we've got fairly tight fitting plastic sleeve. I'll get the detail bags out there. We're going to take a look at those. So here we are. We've got the Class 92 out, and what is immediately apparent is we've got a lot of weight in this. Really is a heavy model. Now there's a little bit of, looks like we've got some oil that's leaked out of the transmission somewhere. Not too much, and I see that a lot across different manufacturers. But this, again, a really nice touch. We're starting to see this more and more. These etched metal, we've got the I think it's Railfreight distribution diamonds, and also the BR double arrow. Now, the real locomotives had cast versions of these, and whilst they are printed onto the model and really quite high fidelity, should you wish, you can use these as a guide and just carefully, and I recommend something like PVA, and be very sparing. You don't need a lot. You can position and glue the etched versions directly over the top, using these as the guide of where to put them. The model also features the raised detail of these three circles, which was a very characteristic look of these, and actually persists through a lot of the different livery versions, including more recently DB Schenker. You still see these picked out. They have retained this feature through a lot of the liveries, almost like big polo mints or car tyres. And I think these were an aluminium casting on the real locomotives, and certainly it gave them a very stylised look. Now, all of the locomotives were delivered in this sort of two-tone grey livery, a very Railfreight distribution, and that includes the SNCF ones, although the SNCF ones, rather than having the BR double arrow, had SNCF down here on this side as well. It's only after privatisation and use with EWS that re-liverying started to come in, and we started to see a huge diversification of the liveries that were available. We've got a whole load of what look to be buffer beam detail, and I think this is a case of either or with the tension lock couplings. Now, there's plenty of information in the paperwork to show you exactly where you need to fit these. I'm just going to move those to one side, and next up I really want to show you the detail on the roof. We've got the correct, it's like a strange blue livery, very characteristic of these locomotives, built by Brush Traction, and actually design-wise, outwardly at least, the body shell shared a great deal of similarities with the Class 60 locomotives that were also built by Brush, but internally very, very different locomotives. The pantograph detail is really quite complex, and if you remember back to that little warning card that we had with the information, these are locked in the down position for transport, and what it recommends is a very small pair of tweezers, and then very carefully what we're doing is just picking these up and there, unclipping. And don't worry too much, obviously don't go too gung-ho, but they do unclip quite readily. Then the servo is free to move them up and down, and it just stops them from springing out for whatever reason and getting caught in transit. The rest of the roof detail is quite robust. We've got these breaker bars, bus bars along the top. The insulators too, a lot of separately applied detail. We've got these vents and everything that you can see up here. This is all separately applied and really, really well done. We've got the rest of the roof detail. A lot of this is what you're going to be seeing the most of your locomotive on the average layout. Again, more bus bars, really quite chunky bus bars, and quite robust. A lot of this detail, I'm messing about with it and nothing's coming free. Nothing feels like it needs to be treated with kid gloves. And there we have the other pantograph at the other end, and I will be showing you those on the layout actually working, and it really is a joy to watch them go up and down. Even if you don't have overhead line equipment, of course these locomotives would also run on third rail electric as well. We've got these horns on the front. I think they're metal. They're certainly very, very robust, and I wouldn't have dared to do this on models of 10 years ago because you would just end up breaking the horns off. But these are really quite strong detail parts. Again, we've got the separately applied windscreen washers. These are etched details, and again really quite strong on there. The windows, we don't actually have any prismatic effect realistically that I can see. Some of the best glazing that I've seen on a model, and at the moment the cab looks really, really dark. But I'm going to light that up and you'll see that inside that cab is a huge wealth of detail, and it really shows why cab lights are something that does add a lot to a model, because it shows off, you can see all that detail. And I have been saying this about models from some other manufacturers where they've got lovely detailed cabs and then they don't provide the cab lighting to show that off, and it really does feel like an own goal. But we don't get that with these. We get directional cab lighting, which if you've got the sound option from the factory is on F19. It really is well worth making use of that. The underside of the model is not forgotten and still got a lot of detail hiding down here. We've got parts picked out in the appropriate colours, a lot of separately fitted pieces, and I really like this grille just here. Even though it's on the body side, it's a proper grille. There's detail behind there. That really does look good. The bogies too are something which could very easily become quite plasticky and slab-sided because they've got these kind of long, flat eye section beams along the top, and that could be quite featureless, but it isn't on this model. You can see the red and the white piping on there, and some black piping as well. Particularly, just look there, just above that central axle box, the way those pipes sweep round just like the prototype pipework would. The attention just to where all that fits in is really, really well done. That is incredible detail, and the paint finish on those is perfect. It looks, to my eye, in the viewfinder of the camera, everything is exactly where it needs to be. Looking to the other end too, we've got again all the same sorts of detail. We've got feels like, I'm going to say, metal grab rail there across the front, and the front face of this locomotive is captured incredibly well. And it's, even though I'm not really a modern image modeler, these to me are one of the standout classes of locomotives that operate on Britain's railways, even to today, and the look of these is captured exactly as I would expect. The printing is sharp. We've got the 003 of the running number, the overhead warning flashes really crisp and clear, and then we've got the lighting clusters. Now, when I've had this on the layout and operated the lighting, what I really like about this is that they're not just on and off. There's that fading that you would get, that normal fading where a light is turned off, and it doesn't just snap off. It kind of, the glow diminishes, and then the glow of the next light as it builds up. And I suspect it's on the full-size prototypes, it's about protecting the bulbs. It's something that those people who back in the day had dimmer switches found. The light bulbs didn't blow as often because you weren't shocking them, you were building the voltage up and down, and I think there's perhaps something like that going on here to preserve bulb life. We've got quite a bit of detail on the front buffer beams, factory applied, and I do like the attention to detail for the jumper cables and such like, all in place. And even though there's that extra detail for the user to fit, I have to say, if you don't choose to fit it, it doesn't look any the worse for it. I don't see any glaring holes. We've also got these rectangular buffers, fully sprung, and again, another thing that really is a trademark of this class. Really, really nicely rendered there. Looking to the underside, we have got, let's have a look there now, we've got all-wheel drive to both bogies. So this is, again, just like the Deltic was, something that will have plenty of grip and plenty of go. The couplings are factory applied, tension lock in a self-centering mechanism, but then they have a really interesting design whereby you just pull and clip. You can see there the entire lot will come out. So unlike with the normal way that these would be fitted to models up till now, where even if you take the coupling out, you're still left with this lump hidden away, you can actually remove the coupling NEM pocket, but in such a way that's not destructive. And I think that that is a really great innovation that these models come with. We've got sanding pipes that are metal. We've also got chemically blackened wheels, which look to be of the appropriate profile and really does look quite nice in there. One thing I've also noticed is that those of you who model EM or P4, there looks to be provision for the extra width should you be one of those people who goes that way. The brake blocks look to be such that they've got provision for that little bit of extra space, although they do kind of line up nicely with the wheels. And we've also got these bus bars down the side for the third rail pickup shoes. Really interesting and quite busy bogies on these, and certainly Accurascale kudos. Absolutely perfect. These bogies really are a great feature. Looking to the rest of the printing, the 92003 really crisp, and the factory printed version of the BR Double Arrow does look pretty good. We've got quite a sharp demarcation between the yellow and the rest of the body colours. The orange line correctly continues over the cab windows. And then we've got this really, again, quite complicated look. I mean, look at how complex that front cab shape is, with the sort of bulbous, very kind of late 80s, early 90s design in terms of aesthetics, but actually it does have that kind of charm to it. But the yellow fronts do go where they're supposed to, with the body grey just slipping past underneath on the front. Looking to the body sides, I do like these grills. There's actually a hole all the way through into the body and detail inside the body shell, and certainly it really does give a great effect and a real sense of depth to the model. The rest of the printing on the side is crisp and sharp. We've got the works plate there. Moving further along, just an indication of which cab end this is, cab 1, side A. And we've got the TOPS data panel. Really crisp. I can't read it with my naked eye, but I've got every faith that that's going to be perfectly legible. Now, the crest here on the side, we do have etched versions of those, but the printed version, to be honest, for most people, you'll find that more than adequate. And the more you look, there's more and more detail printed on these that is very well realised. When it comes to DCC fitting, there's not actually any explicit instructions on how to do this. Unlike the Class 55, there's no easily removable roof panel, and there's just a small reference to taking the body off with 4 body side clips to ease out and slide the body roof off. But I suspect that it really is something that if you don't have to get inside this model, it's really a best case to leave it well alone, because we're going to have servo operated pantographs. There's going to be wires to those, and actually I did try it in my DCC Concepts locomotive servicing cradle, and whilst it was upside down, I had a big issue with the tops of these pantographs just coming unclipped and being left in the bottom of the cradle. And in all honesty, I'm not confident enough to be taking the body off this model without a specific need. Now, I know that that might be a little bit irksome for anybody who just wants a regular DCC fitted model, but there are 4 clips underneath, and you're going to have to be quite dexterous to get them off, and I just don't want to run the risk of causing damage to those pantographs. So unfortunately, that is probably one of the negative points that I can point to with this model, that it doesn't share with the Class 55. When it comes to running on the layout, the model really did just glide round with a certain kind of grace. It has a lot of weight and a lot of momentum, and it meant it was completely untroubled by the train that I used to test it with. And it had every feeling that, just like the Class 55 Deltic, it would still keep pulling without any signs of slipping long after the couplings between the coaches or wagons started to fail because of the inward pull and weight of the train. Indeed, it's probably the case that Weir just isn't big enough to tax this model until it started slipping. It got through the point work really with greatest of ease, and gradients and change of gradients really did not bother it in the slightest. When it came to the sound suite, it certainly is really interesting to hear. I don't have any other electric locomotives in my collection, but this is crisp and clear with the factory fitted speaker setup, and it was actually quite a pleasure to listen to as it went through its startup sequence. The lighting functions are quite extensive, with a variety of different lighting modes, including night and shunt mode, and in addition we've got that top headlight and the ability to turn the tail lights on and off in the DCC function list. The cab lights, as said before, really are a great touch and show off the detail of that cab interior really well. When it comes to operation of the pantographs, it really is quite easy on the F26 and F27 functions. Both of the pantographs are independent to each other, and characteristically these locomotives would run with only the rear pan up as they went along, and it would simply be a case of the second pantograph would be either spare or simply for when the locomotive runs in the opposite direction, but there's nothing to stop you from running it with both or neither of the pantographs erect at any one time. For those of you who want to be prototypically accurate but don't have overhead line, these locomotives also ran off the third rail electric, and it comes pre-fitted with the pickup shoes on the bogies for that functionality. And it's also the case that the Stay Alive that is factory fitted on this model had plenty of oomph, not just to keep the locomotive running over minor dead spots, but keep the sound functioning too. And actually, if you lift the model off the track, it does show you how much power reserve there is in there, that it does just keep going. So we turn now to the scores, and first up is build quality, and actually overall this is pretty good. The detail on the roof, which could have been quite susceptible to damage, does seem by and large pretty rugged, and certainly on the bogie sides and the underframe too. I did have a little bit of an issue with a loose grille on the body side, but it was no great problem to glue that back in, and it does seem to be fairly well in now. The only area for concern is the heads of the pantographs, and whilst overall these are quite a rugged mechanism, you may have seen earlier on in the video that I had one of these pop off, and I accidentally reassembled it backwards, and I've gone back and sorted that out. But when I was doing an abortive attempt to get the body off, it did feel that these were very susceptible to damage, so I'm going to give this a 9.8. On running quality, the locomotive was, just like the Class 55 was from Accurascale, a faultless performer with plenty of mass, momentum, grip and go about it. There really was no stopping it, and I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. On DCC fitting and innovation, well, let's take the innovation side first. Having not one but two servo-operated pantographs that are controlled from the DCC decoder really is a great step forward in terms of making full use of what DCC can offer. I also really like all of the different lighting modes like night mode and shunt mode that are there for the user to make use of, and certainly that makes prototypical operation so much easier. The cab lights really are sublime, and they show off the amazing internal details so well. And it should also be pointed out that when the direction lights are operated, we also get Accurascale's trademark light up instrument clusters too, which can be seen quite readily through the side windows and really does add something. When it comes to DCC fitting though, I was a little bit puzzled that unlike the Class 55 where we had that really easy removable roof section, it appears that we need to get the body off this, but there's no explicit instructions about DCC fitting, and I thought that to be a little bit strange. When trying to get the body off as well, I did get this feeling that the pantographs were very prone, and if you don't need to get the body off, it does recommend to kind of leave it well alone. And it just felt like in all of the fitting of this All Singing All Dancing sound installation, nobody really quite thought about what about people who just want a basic DCC installation. And if there was one recommendation that I would take to Accurascale, is perhaps to consider having a DCC fitted option in addition to the sound and DCC ready, because unless you're extremely confident about getting the body off, then I personally am a little bit worried about these pantograph heads. So overall, I'm going to give it a 7.8. On accuracy and quality of finish, there just isn't anything to fault. This is another well-researched, well-executed model from Accurascale, and I'm going to give it 10 out of 10. When it comes to value for money, the basic model, DCC Ready, is available for £189 from the link that we've got in the description, or £279 if you want to go for that full sound install. And I really would recommend the full sound fitting if you want to go for the DCC option, not because it makes it a much easier peace of mind to have it all pre-fitted, but simply because it gives you so much more. This is a really good sound suite on this model, and with those two servo operated pantographs and all those lighting functions, really it is well worth that £90, which is a really great price just for a sound installation, to have this all singing, all dancing. So I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10, and that gives us a final total score of 47.6. This really is an excellent follow-up from Accurascale, bringing at last a high-spec model of the Class 92. It really is a lovely model, and with the range of different livery options that they have available, it's certainly going to be a popular model. And whilst it does feel that the Class 55 was much easier to deal with from a DCC fitting perspective with that magnet-held roof hatch, this is certainly a really great model and I can highly recommend it. I'd like to thank Accurascale for sending this model over for review. Well, I hope you really enjoyed today's video and found it informative as well, and I'd love to hear from you in the comments section down below if this is a model that maybe you've got it on order or you've already received yours. I'd love to hear your experiences and thoughts too. And don't forget that we've got an affiliate link in the description box that takes you to Rails of Sheffield, where you can find the model featured today and also all of the other different livery options, and they'll be at the prices quoted in the video. Also, we've got the Monday Club Palbrick wagon is still available to order. You'll find a link for that down below, along with our full merchandise shop with the hoodies, t-shirts, mugs and everything else besides. So get yourself some great channel gear. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, saying you take great care of yourself. Happy modelling. Bye for now. Today's video is sponsored by Train-O-Matic, makers of DCC decoders designed to be fully compatible with every manufacturer's locomotive. Visit train-o-matic.com to browse the full range and see what they've got suitable for you. Additional support comes from Rails of Sheffield. Sell to the name you know and trust. Family-run business purchasing collections for over 50 years. From single items to lifetime collections, no collection is too small or too big. Buy, sell or exchange, any age, or any gauge. Rails will take everything: locos, coaches, wagons, track work, controllers, accessories. In fact, they'll take absolutely everything and certainly will not cherry pick the best items. Rails are only a phone call away. Call them now for the very best price and get instant cash payment or same-day transfer. Check them out today at the link below. I'd like to send out a huge thanks to everybody who supports me on Patreon, and an extra special huge thanks goes out to Anthony Kidson, Offshore Allen, Michael Lockie, Helen Sink, Gary Lewis, David Quinn, Sparky107107, George Botterini, Chris Moss, Robert Steers, Sam Yates, Dale Williams, John N from NC, NYMRish, Jonathan Foster, Peter, Clifford Ison, Larry W. Grant, NI Railways 4000 class, Ian Coulson, Alan Dickerson, Eddie Popper, Karen Nichol, Medwin Williams, Crossways Point Junction, 3B Rail, Jennifer Horton, and James Beckett. Thank you. Without you guys, I couldn't do this.